Chairman. I move to adopt resolution number 19-02-01 to certify the ballot language for a millage request on the May 2019 ballot for the construction, equipping, operating, maintaining, and financing of a new county jail and expanding correctional programming, and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
There's a motion on the table. Support. We have support. Commissioner Horvath. Now it is open for discussion at this time. Sheriff?
Good evening.
Welcome.
Last night, you heard about the jail's condition, as you have for years and years. And you heard from Master Sergeant Casey Colbury as he explained the conditions that the deputies work in. The jail's in bad shape, and I know people don't want to spend money, but we're incurring a liability that may end up costing the county money in the long run. Crime happens every day. You can't let everybody out in the street to run around, no matter how opposed you are to incarceration. I had 5 murder suspects in there at one time, just since I've been sheriff. So these are not safe people that you want among you. We need to have a place to secure them. But there's good things that can come out of incarceration, because a lot of the crimes that are committed are crimes against society. And I believe when you have crimes against society, that those people can be helped. And they can be helped from some of these programs that we have a plan to develop with community health and wellness. These plans can be developed as necessary. So with that in mind, I ask you to give serious consideration to moving this forward and allowing the people a choice on building a new county jail. Tonight I have asked Mr. Nate Watson from Public Finance Management to come and answer any questions that you may have in regards to the numbers that you were provided. And Ms. Hall is here again tonight from Shiawassee County Health and Wellness if you'd like to discuss any of the problem or the program, that have been developed to help with this recidivism problem. Another feature of this jail that I think is a strong plus is the juvenile holding facilities. There are a lot of crimes committed by juveniles that we're housing outside this county, and it costs about $200 a day. Yeah. If one of our children from this community commit a crime, I think I'd rather have them right here than sitting in Saginaw or Genesee County somewhere among people that may have done worse. So if you have to have a jail and you have to incarcerate people, I think it's better that it be right here among our own people. So, thank you, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Watson if there's any questions about the numbers that he's provided to you.
Okay. Does the board have any questions or related to numbers or?
So I had a conversation with Mr. Watson before the meeting started, because I've asked this question a couple of times this week and was not able to get clarity on it. And so I'm going to say what I understood that he said to me, and then maybe that'll help some of you be able to understand what he may explain. The question I've been asking is, on this chart that's sort of the front page of PFM, it's got notes scratched on it, but that table with the 5 scenarios, we have the different estimated millage amounts, and the bond amount stays the same each time. But then over on the far right, there's fluctuation in operations and programs. And I've tried to figure out, how is it that the bond amount stays the same, but those programs are fluctuating? Are we going to spend less on a building if we do the programs? How can you have a consistent bond amount and have fluctuating operations and programs? And so this is what he explained to me, that we're voting on a millage amount, and that the millage is going to cover basically 4 things. It will cover the bond amount, which is the building of the physical plant. It will cover the interest. In addition, and so those are bond related, the bond and the interest on the bond. But in addition to covering the bond, the millage is also going to pay for operations and programs, which means that under scenario 1, 1.64 million, what we're actually collecting from taxpayers that total amount of the project is really 47 million, not 37 million that we've been saying. And with interest, the total cost of scenario one is over $70 million to taxpayers. Is that?
It's close. It's close.
Okay.
So you're right. The jail bonds are estimated to be $37,230,000. What this consists of is a project amount, the higher end scenario that was provided to BFM, of $37.7 million. And then the bond amount incorporates the cost of issuance and less interest earnings on the bonds. So in all the scenarios, the project cost, so the upfront dollars that the county would receive after the bond sale, is $37.7 million. And that relates to the bond amount of $37.23 million. So obviously when you're paying back a bond, the principal needs to be repaid. And in this case, the interest component brings up the total estimated bond cost to $54,128,000. Now this is based on an interest rate of 3.8%. Given the county's current S&P rating of AA-, the current interest rate would probably be around 3.25%. However, because we can't go to market and sell these bonds today, we've buffered this up by about 0.5%, maybe a little bit more in this case. But again, that's for interest rate movements. Interest rates move every day. The county credit rating hasn't been looked at since 2010, so this is just a kind of a cushion in order to provide you with an estimate of what this project would cost. And then in addition to that, as you said, we have total operation expenditures that will be covered by the millage of about $231,000, and then programs also to be covered by the millage of about $250,000. So breaking it down based on our estimates, significant assumption, 2% taxable value growth, 1.64 mils would generate total property tax revenues of about $70 million. Of this $70 million, about $54 million would be used for the principal and interest on the bonds. About $5.6 million would go towards operations. About $6 million would go to programs, which would leave a surplus after 20 years of about $4 million.
Is there anything else, Mr. Horvath?
Yeah, you know, I was having some people who I know help review some of the numbers that we've had. And some think that this is not necessarily a millage bond, but a millage levy. Is that, are you familiar with those terminology?
That is correct. The community would be voting on the millage amount, not the dollar amount of the bond project. So that's a good question. So if it was only a bond proposal, what we would do is that would be the county would vote on if the county has the ability to issue $37.23 million. However, there's some programs to also be funded with this millage, so the community will be voting on the millage rate, not the bond amount. Does that make sense?
Maybe.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So with schools, you typically vote on the dollar amount, and you have unlimited tax power. You can levy whatever's needed in order to cover cost of issuance and bond debt service. In this case, the county would levy 1.64 mils, and that money generated on an annual basis would take care of bond debt service, operations, and programs.
Okay. Yeah, so just one of the comments I've written down here, regarding if this is in fact a millage levy, is that, you know, that would, you know, it would be an advantage in a sense, because of the adjustments that are possible along the way. Is that an accurate statement at all?
Yeah, I think where you're going at is the tax base could grow more than 2%. There's the heavily rollback that would basically restrict that 1.64 mils if the tax base grew more quickly than inflation or 5%. But you know, if the tax base grows more quickly than 2%, then 1.64 mils would generate more money. Then it would be the county's discretion on whether or not to levy the full 1.64 mils.
Okay. So essentially, we could adjust that millage.
Downwards, not upwards. So it would be a maximum of 1.64 mils.
Okay.
And if you voted on the bond amount, then you'd have discretion to go, either way with it. But when the community votes on the millage rate, you can only decrease it.
Nate, thank you for coming today. If we were in the position to reduce the bonds early, what kind of a penalty is there for we pay it off early?
Sure, so these are tax exempt bonds. Typically tax exempt bonds are sold with a 10-year call. Usually that 10-year call is used if interest rates are lower come 10 years, then you reduce the cost of interest. If there's extra money in 10 years, you could reduce the par amount by calling it. There is no premium for that. It's just sold with a 10-year call option, but it's at the option of the county, not the investor.
Yeah. So we have to, it's 10 years before we can call.
10 years before you can restructure the debt. Exactly.
Okay. 10 years before we start.
Now, that's not hard and fast. If there's a need to have a shorter call, it will come with an upfront penalty in terms of interest rate. But the 10 years is standard for tax exempt bonds.
More questions? Commissioners?
I just got one. In the initial discussions, of course, I reported this to several of my constituents, that the total cost would be 60 million. And the total cost here is 70 million.
Based on a
The
millage,
interest in programs and maintenance.
based on the millage rate and our assumption tax value growth, 2%, 1.64 mils would generate property taxes of approximately $70 million
Yeah. With a $4 million cushion left over.
with a $4 million cushion left over.
And also you expressed that the 2% growth, that's basically, the county goes from $1.7 billion of value, and then 20 years later, for the sake of argument, it's worth $2.6 billion.
Correct, over 20 years at 2% growth. Exactly.
Compound.
Yep, and that's a very hard thing to estimate. Obviously with this, with the recession, taxable values really took a dive. Recently, I think the county's growth was over 3% last year. I know the CPI, or inflation, for 2019 is about 2.4%. Last year it was 2.1, and the county almost doubled that. So it's really a hard projection.
Yeah.
The 2% is conservative.
Okay, all right. It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of money, and I think maybe it should be up to the voters whether they want to, pay for that much money. And also, I don't think there's going to be money left over even after 10 years and stuff. We're going to have to do some maintenance to it and do some work on it. And there's going to be, some upkeep, so we're not going to have a lot left over to reduce everything down, I don't think. So that's my theory about everything.
What is the cost of an election?
Well, the countywide election's gonna run about 20 to 25,000. And that's with some unknowns because of some of the laws that changed in the proposal 3. And we don't have all those answers yet as to how the Bureau's going to be doing some things.
Mr. Chairman, I am convinced that we need a new jail, but I'm struggling because I only saw these numbers, for the first time a week ago yesterday. And just today got answers on some of the questions that I've been asking because we didn't know. And I think it's an indicator that this is a very, very large project and it's moving very, very quickly. And I'm uncomfortable with how fast I'm being asked to make a decision that I have to explain to constituents. And maybe just people who are against it are the ones who call, but I've heard from a lot of people that this is just too much. So those are my struggle is on this.
Thank you. Yeah, I do think, I think there's going to be people that are concerned. I know you're new, so I know it's being rushed on you. But the previous board and the sheriff have been working on this for 2 years, and this is something that has been going on. It's been an ongoing work. Understand there's 4 new commissioners, so that changes things. But I know the commissioners, or the sheriff has taken a lot of time and put into it, along with the feasibility study, the jail committee meeting. And so there has been a lot of time because we know it's a massive undertaking. It's a massive project. I mean, we know the need is there, we've seen that the need's there. The problem comes into how do we fix this need, you know? I'm not the biggest fan of just saying, yeah, we gotta put it out to the voters and the voters gotta either vote to pay for it or turn it down, you know? I don't like that idea either. I don't like going to my meetings and having to tell them, yeah, you know, we're gonna put something on the ballot that could pass. You could vote no on it, but it could still pass. You know, I have trouble with that, and I always do when any kind of proposals like this go out that are costly. But I do understand that we have to do something at this point, and I mean, at this point, it's our simple ask. It's our ask to the public. Let's gauge the public. If the public comes back with a resounding no, then we're at the drawing board again. I mean, I don't think anyone up here is sitting here saying, we want to raise your taxes, we want you to, you know, you have to support a jail, you have to pay for the jail. We're just simply asking the public, would you be interested? Would you help us out? Because there is liabilities, there is concerns, there is problems that could arise from this. And I mean, the building was built in the 60s. We're getting to that point. It's unsafe for our workers. It's unsafe for the individuals in there. So, I mean, I understand all concerns because I have them myself. So, but again, my one thing that I keep going back to is when do we address this problem? You know, if not now, then.
I mean, is there any way that we can just take another 6 months? Can this be a November election?
I mean, that is a possibility.
Or August?
It is a possibility.
It just feels like, you know, that we've seen one plan. Are there could we do less than 224 beds? That's a lot of beds. 9,000 square feet for office, that's a big office. I mean, is there a way that it can be scaled down? Can we pursue some grants for programs? I mean, I want to vote yes for a new jail, but my other concern is that, yes, I am new, but also we've known since November 7th that I was going to be a commissioner and have to make this decision, and I got the packet of information 8 days ago. And I haven't had time to take it out to my townships, to talk to any of them, to see what their input is on this. It could help us to save the $25,000 for an election if we were gauging where people are. So that's where I am, struggling with that, because I know that we need a new jail. I think our current jail is inhumane, and I think $70 million on a very poor county is inhumane too.
Yeah. Anything further from commissioners at this time? Commissioner Horvath?
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate just a little bit on the subject of the lesser beds and this type of thing. I didn't realize actually until the presentation that was here that what we saw is basically an architectural sketch of what the plan would look like. And they talked about expandability in the future. Why can't we produce a smaller, not necessarily smaller, but a lesser bed solution for right now? Because apparently our census doesn't necessarily need to accommodate the 236 beds. That's only comes from a future plan. So that's that's just one of the elements of this whole thing. Keeping the costs down, is a factor.
Yeah, we were. I believe the initial study when we put this out was a 300-bed facility, was larger, and then per the study, and then just looking at the numbers and what could come down with this county and the trends that are going on led to the 220. I believe it's
224 beds. And I think it was also explained yesterday, if we have 224 beds, that doesn't mean we have 224 inmates. You may have 205 because you have to leave room in a jail. You can't fill it to capacity because you have to have room to classify people, to move people around, to do preventive maintenance and things like that. So it may seem high, but we're not reaching that number. That's our problem right now, why we're in violation, because even at the numbers we're at now, we don't have the room to move the inmates around to classify. So it's just a matter of making the room
Right.
is how some of that figures in there.
Just to be clear, I do believe we need a new jail. You know, I mean, I don't see any other way around that.
Sure. And we didn't pick that number. That was just a suggestion from the jail feasibility study. So that's how they arrived there.
And yet, you know, some of the comments that you did is, you know, that's an awful amount, that's for the size of our county. And like I say, I would like to hear more information, and I suppose that's why I don't want to delay this. I'd like to hear more information about that possibility of building something that can be expanded into a larger capacity over time, and then, you know, make what adjustments we need.
My fear with that would be the double ask. It almost seems like you'd be asking for something now and then in 5 to 10 years saying, hey guys, by the way, we built it too small, we need to ask more. I mean, I think the layout of what it is right now, I have no problem with the layout, the size, the scale of it. I think that all came in with the study and looks like it's what's necessary moving forward. Still being slightly on the conservative end, not the large side. But again, it's the you know, the cost does concern me, but I think the size of I think the specs and the plans is pretty solid. I wonder if we do go another 6 months to discuss this. I don't see those changing much. I mean, I think it's a pretty solid plan. You know, I mean, and again, we're I don't know. And Commissioner Marks, I think he had something.
Yeah, you kind of said my thoughts regarding the 224 beds. The last thing I would do as a commissioner would be to build a jail for less than, and if I remember correctly in the presentation, that projection 224 was for growth of the county. So, right, we're not going to build a jail, which 10 years from now, 5 years from now, they come back and tell us, well, we're at capacity again. What have we done? If we put something on a ballot where it's too small for our needs, we grow. Right? I would never do that. So the 224 beds is a sticking point for me. As the sheriff said, you cannot be at capacity. There's a lot that goes into that. The beds isn't the issue. Money is going to be the issue to the people. There isn't many people going to be sitting in their home today reviewing some of what we've gone over and say, man, I don't mind the money, but it's the beds that are killing me.
But it's the downsides and
The issue was the money. And, you know, you talked about expansion costs. Maybe we go smaller and we can expand. That is true. The way that they've set up the jail could be expanded. But once again, you'd be going back to the taxpayer saying, well, we built a small jail just because we thought we wanted to be conservative. That's great. Now we need another, you know, to levy again. That's not going to happen, right? We may not get this passed if we put it on the May ballot. We may put it out there and it fails 70 to 30. And then we will be back to the drawing board. My fear of delaying this, and I don't want to rush anybody, but yes, Mr. Root, I have been on this for 2 years, looking at all these numbers and the feasibility of this and what we need. If we were to delay it to November and it goes down in November, then we're back to the drawing board and we've delayed this 1 whole year before we can come back again. And another year of this is going to cost us. It's not worth it. Let the people decide and let's gauge where they are. And if it's a yes, then it's a yes. If it's a no, then it's our job. Then it's our job to go back and take a look at what we need to strip off, what we need to change, what really it is we can look at to make it move closer to the will of people. Right now, we don't know where this stands. It's been 20 years. We have no idea. It's up to us today.
Sheriff?
You know, I respect everybody's opinions on stuff, but I can tell you every day that you delay, you are throwing money into a building that is dysfunctional and obsolete. And if you keep delaying it, you're going to have to throw in more money, and then there'll be people who said you just put $100,000 and some roof on it, and you want a new jail. No way. You know, we asked for this jail 20 years ago when the county needed it, and it was $25 million back then, and that included the courthouse. And now we stand before you today saying we need a $37 million jail and no courthouse. So the cost of construction is only going to rise. So I have these feelings. Back in 1963, they may have had these same arguments about building that jail, and here we are. But and nobody wants to do it, but it needs to be done. So I wish you guys would all think about some of those things.
I'd like to call the question.
Question called. Is there anyone challenging the question? Yes, no? All right, then we will put this to a roll call vote at this time. I feel it's fairly rushed. I had some more comments I'd like to make, but we'll go ahead and roll call vote.
Well, Mr. Chair, if you have more comments you'd like to make, then I'll contest the call. We'll keep it open. Let's talk this to death if we have to, because this is a big decision for 75,000 people. We should sit here all night if we have to make the right decision.
The
Or
question
yes
is
or
the
no.
challenge. Now we will roll call whether or not call the question.
Thank you. I will say again that I know that we need a new jail. I don't know if this is a conservative proposal because I have not seen any of the others, and I would like to have seen some of the others. And I know that everybody's, busy, and I didn't know this was coming on until just the last couple of weeks. I heard rumors, but didn't know. And it's really hard to know if this is conservative. It doesn't feel conservative to me, but that's because I haven't seen the scale. I don't know what the other proposals were. So it's hard for me to give a yes vote when I don't feel like I have the information I need on such a very, very large project. It's difficult.
Just to follow up on that train of thought, I think our citizens need to know. People who will come out for an election in May are that concerned group. And essentially, I think they need to know. But I'm questioning, also whether or not it will pass. And I think the point about, if we just accept the fact that we need to get more information, I think we may be better off starting to work on a plan that could reduce those costs, at least presented as one of an option. I am kind of curious, how much of the detail work has already been done on the drawing as far as that goes. You might know. Or we just look at it as somebody whips it together for the sake of presentation.
Those are all preliminary drawings. They give you a basic idea of how the jail will be laid out, but it doesn't specifically say, okay, we got an interview room here, so therefore it's got to stay there. No. But we've sat down probably almost a dozen times since the time that I started planning this to talk about this project and what we'd like to see in a jail. And this company that we selected, Joe Maroc himself, and the only reason I sought Mr. Maroc out is because I found that he is probably one of the most experienced jail builders in the United States. He himself has designed over 90 jails in the United States. So he comes with a wealth of experience. And I think if we do have a jail, we're going to have probably one of the best jails in the country.
Mr. Marks, anything to add?
Yes, I do. It's simply that, I've heard a few commissioners say, and rightfully so, that they feel, based on what they engage with their constituents, they're not confident this will pass. I say that I don't know that we do know whether it will pass or not, because the last time this was asked, there was a need 20 years ago. The test was 20 years ago. We don't know if it's going to pass or not, but we certainly would, based on the answer. And then I don't want to put the cart before the horse. If they say no, then we go back. And if that's 3 months, that's 3 months. But if it passes, then we've got work to do. And I believe that if we put this on the ballot, the sheriff's got work to do. It's his job to get out there and sell to the people, not ours.
Dina's probably got work too.
The point is, we just cannot know what the people of this county are going to decide until we vote. The last time we did it was 20 years ago, and so I will be voting yes to give them a choice.
Commissioner Barber?
Well, as you all know, I'm a new commissioner also. I have taken the time to thoroughly review this jail proposal. And I think it is a solid proposal. It is in no way, in my opinion, more than what we need. And also, the issue was raised about sustainability yesterday. What we have over there is not sustainable. we are putting money hand over fist into a building that just doesn't warrant any more money being put into it. And as I sit here as a commissioner, I don't feel good about that. I wouldn't put money into my own house if it was falling down. So I definitely will vote yes to put this on in May. That's all I have.
Commissioner Holzhausen?
I think we talked it to death, I think we better take the vote.
Okay. Commissioner Plowman, any last comments?
Yeah, I have one that hasn't risen today. Our sheriff is an elected official. And he's asking the Board of Commissioners to give him the opportunity to have an election to fund a new jail. He's an elected official, and that's his realm. But he has to come to us to get permission to put it on the ballot. If the sheriff was hired by the Board of Commissioners, then it's up to the Board of Commissioners to put it on the ballot and do the campaigning. But the sheriff has asked us as an elected official, and I'm going to respect that. I'm not happy that it's 70. I thought it was 60. I'm going to have to go back and eat crow with 2 townships. So I've been sitting here, you haven't heard much from me because of that. But I do know that we need a new jail. And I will respect the sheriff and the many people who worked on this project. They want it to come to a vote. And if it doesn't pass, or it does pass, then we'd have to really take another look at it. And now, of course, I really respect Marlene, coming on board new. John's had some really good and Cindy. But I have been a commissioner. I do understand these charts, but I did miss the 70 million. I thought it was 60. But so I guess I'm the last one.
Thank you, Commissioner Plowman.
All right, at this point, we've heard enough. I will leave it at that. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Holzhausen,
No.
Commissioner Horvath,
No,
Commissioner Garber,
Yes.
Commissioner Marks,
Yes.
Commissioner Plowman,
Yes.
Commissioner Webster,
No,
Chairman Root.
Yes. We'll move on to agenda item C.
did you ask if there were any comments? What did you say?
Yes, any other comments from any members of the board?
I wanted to say that I really appreciated our discussion tonight. It was very respectful and it was a really difficult topic. And I appreciated the tone of it and that we agreed to disagree, so.
Thank you.
and I'd like to make a comment on that as well. Now that it's done, and we're moving forward, I want to put all the effort into this. But what would be very helpful is information. Because it's been hard to understand this as it's been explained to me without having been here for the last term, when others have had that information. And those are the kind of questions we're facing, and I want to see these passed now.
Very good, very good. Anyone else? Good, very good. Anyone else? All right, we're going to go on to the second opportunity for the public to address the board. If anyone has anything you would like to speak in the second round, remember to fill out a slip and you can address the board. But right now, Anthony Carhoff.
Okay. First of all, apologize for my fire pager going off, guys. I'm a volunteer. It does happen now and then. Well, congratulations, everybody, on being elected. Thank you. I know how hard it is to serve as an elected official. I came to talk about the jail, for and against, but I do understand everybody's opinions and concerns. $70 million is a lot of money. Would 6 months have helped? Probably. I'd like to see it pass. I trust Brian Bagol. I've worked with him. I grew up with him. I mean, my dad had 28 and a half years in with the county here. He did a lot of maintenance in that jail. And my dad has, relayed a lot of concerns of the condition of that jail. And he's been off for almost 10 years, retired now. So it's only progressively gotten worse. So yes, we do need a new jail. But I do find it difficult to swallow the $7 million ticket. I was figuring this out. You know, I brought my tax papers because, you know, we all pay taxes, and the lovely thing is so my SEV value for my little small farm is $53,800, and I believe Cindy Garber and I kind of figured that out. You know, it'd come down about $82 a year for my property taxes would go up, and it isn't that bad, but I wish we would have had a little more time to talk about it and get more public input. But, you know, I support Brian Bagol. He is an elected official. I trust him. We've been on many calls where stuff's hit the fan and we're working together side by side. If he says we need a new jail, I think you guys did the right thing. Put it to the people's vote. Let them decide. You guys are doing a good job. I appreciate it. Thank you, Brian, for what you've done with the jail. You've turned it around. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Brian True.
Yeah, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to see that jail's functionally obsolete. You know, I live this every day. I drive by the Detroit jail and I see what a disaster that project was. I think unfortunately there's a lot of lack of experience and people rush up here and they see the jail and they know they can sell you on building that jail. Now, I don't know what the actual cost is. It sounds like you guys aren't really prepared. You really don't know. You've apparently hired one person who builds these jails for a living, and he's kind of sold you on the project. I'd highly recommend that you guys invest in a project manager that represents the interests of the counties. Possibly brings in a couple other people to bid out the project. It's nice when people come to town, they take out the lunch and they play golf. I do the same thing. It's a sales job. We're trying to win the work. I'm sure the guy came up and said he built 18 dozen jails. He's trying to win the work too. But it's important that the county has someone who represents their interest. You guys don't build these buildings. When I work with GM or Delphi or any other company, large, small, or indifferent, we bring in someone that knows the process of bidding out the projects, make sure that they look at those bids, and then make sure that they get the best, best they can for the money they're going to spend. And I think you guys just aren't prepared. Admittedly, I haven't been involved in the whole process. I'm new to this, but I went through the whole Project Kim thing. I came up here and some guy over here was giving me a hard time because, you know, I didn't want jobs. No, it didn't pass the sniff test. It was dead on arrival, but somebody came to town, sold you guys a bill of goods. Someone came to Detroit, sold them a bill of goods. So what I ask is maybe the county commissioners hire somebody that knows the process of construction to build this jail. And by bringing that person in, you'll build some confidence with the folks within the county to show that you've got someone that just represents your interests. And I guess he's got some rebuttal, but to bring in one person to try and win that work is, you know, problematic. So go ahead.
Just the opposite. I agree with you 100%. I've already looked into that phase to make sure that the county's interests are protected through the whole construction process. So that I absolutely agree with you on that, sir. So just the opposite.
Okay, sounds good.
I will add that Mr. Maroc, the one that I sought him out though on his architectural design, he designed the jail, but he won't be the one that's contracted to build it.
I still recommend you get a project manager.
Yes, sir. And I have.
Those vendors.
I've already had meetings, and there's been several of the county board of commissioners in those meetings to make sure that the county's best interest through the construction process was there. So, thanks.
Thank you. And finally,
Thank you, Commissioner. You've heard from a multitude of different people, but you haven't heard from a person that's charged with protecting the rights of those individuals that are in the county jail. There's no question we need a new county jail. It's sad to me. I've had clients beat in there before. I've had clients get ill from insects or spider bites and not in the best situation. They're not protected from other predators or maximum security people. And we definitely need a new jail. It was built 1 year before I was born, and I can tell you my body's breaking down at 54 years old, and I can't tell you what the jail's gone through. But as the public defender for this county, there are so many things that this county lacks. We are trying to get addressed as far as meeting room with prisoners for the public defenders, being able to have privacy. And Mr. Sheriff Pagol has taken care of that in his plan for the new jail. It also includes private attorney meeting rooms, which have been mandated already by the state, and we're in the process of implementing them in the old jail. You haven't thought about what it means to the community. I've been kind of going back and forth. Yeah, I don't want to pay any more taxes, but roughly it's not going to be that much. And I think it's well worth it for the commissioners to look at that. And we don't look at the benefits it's going to do for our community. We're going to have services for mental health. We're going to have services for substance abuse. My people need them. I'm so tired of every time I go to a sentencing, the aspects we look at in sentencing, what the judge looks at is punishment, protection of society, rehabilitation, and those are just a few of the things the judge looks at. And when I don't have any rehabilitation programs for the people I represent in this county who need them, I hate to see them go to jail or to prison when we could service them in a new facility with programs that would offer. And one of my suggestions to the sheriff would be get a program going not only with mental health and substance abuse. We have a drug court that started. We are looking to the future for that. We're looking for the betterment of our citizens, but also looking at there's an opportunity to team up with some of the industries here in town to help supply work release people to come work in their company, set up a program. I've heard many times, I've sent some of my clients to go over to Nucor, go over to Crest Marine. They can't get enough people to work there. And we could set up a program, a work release where they could work. Then they could pay also for their stay at the jail at the dollar amount per day what it costs us to house them. So ultimately, as you heard, that is the maximum the commissioners can charge. It would be the 1.64 mils. But if we can set up programs and all work together, we can maybe even lower that price tag to the community. But we've got to start somewhere. And I would urge the commissioners to even help the sheriff advertise, not only do we need it, but I think it's something that can help our community grow, be better, because I know I don't want my children going into that jail. And sometimes stuff happens. And good people end up committing crimes. And I don't want to see people hurt unnecessarily. When we can set up a new jail that offers protection for them, that offers programming that is not currently there. And I think we forget that as part of the proposal is setting up these new programs. Those are tools that I can use as your public defender to help rehabilitate my clients and make them contributing members of our community. So I'd ask the commissioners just to continue to discuss this and support the sheriff. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, again, one last call to the public. If anyone has